Welcome to Capital Dialogue. I'm Bob Priddy from the Missourinet and the Missouri.com. We're glad to have you with us as we talk about some of the key issues facing members of the General Assembly. Today we're going to talk about transportation. That's an issue that affects all of us and very directly. We have two people with us, one from the Senate, one from the House, to talk about this vital issue to our state. On my left is Senator Mike Kehoe of Jefferson City. He's a former car dealer and a former member of the State Transportation Commission. And on my right is State Representative Tim Meadows, who is the ranking Democrat on the House Transportation Committee. He is from Imperial, and he was telling me before the show that he is a former over-the-road trucker. Correct. So both of you have intimate experience, not just knowledge, but intimate experience with this issue of transportation, especially our highways, and how we get around on them. Let me just open up by asking a general question. If you had to do a State of Missouri transportation report, what would you tell the people?
Well, I think I'd start off by saying over the last several years, the Commission has made great strides with the help of partners and contractors and other the MoDOT team in really taking our roads from a really terrible shape. I think in the early 2000s we were ranked somewhere in the 40th of 50 states, all the way up to some reports had as high as 7 or 8 out of the 50 states in this last 2 years. So we've made good progress, but the two sides of that report card is where have we come and where are we going? And where are we going? The resources needed to continue that progress, that's where it gets a little bit challenging. When
you go home to Imperial and you sit down around the coffee table with folks and talk about transportation, what do you tell them? Where are we in the state of Missouri? How are we doing?
In agreement, I'm in total agreement with Senator Kehoe. We were under Pete Ron and the commission that he served upon. We've done some excellent things here in Missouri. We've done great things up on our northern highway, up across east-west, Highway 36, and then on the south end, we redid Highway 60, and it's just an awesome to drive on those roads. But we are facing a major crisis coming down the road, just as the Senator said. Moving forward, what we're going to do with Interstate 70 is going to be something we're going to have to look at. And then transportation as a whole around the state. I do let people know, because right now we're just in a maintenance standpoint of view moving forward, and I know the Senator knows a lot about that, but we're going to even barely have enough funds. We've got to start looking down the road 10, 15 years, and we're going to be in trouble.
As a member of the commission, you not only had to deal with roads and bridges, but I think a lot of people don't realize how many other facets there are to transportation within the transportation department. It's more than just roads and bridges.
Oh, absolutely. We are the transportation department, which includes rivers, rail, airports. MoDOT plays a vital role in the development of a lot of those systems. A key piece of infrastructure just here in the last week was adding a second bridge just east of Jefferson City to alleviate a bottleneck that both the UP, freight carriers, and Amtrak face over the Osage River. That's a huge project that they've been working on since I was on the commission. So that's a rail project that's moving forward. And a lot of different pieces of the rail project to increase on-time delivery and try to incent commerce across our state in the last several years has gotten better. But rail is a big issue. Some people would say Missouri is cursed with rivers. I would say blessed. We certainly are able to use them to our advantage, especially with our large agricultural base and industry. The rivers are very important to us, and for us to try to make sure we work with the Corps and other entities that operate those rivers to use those to our best of our advantage, that's critical in MoDOT's development. And then, of course, airports. That plays a vital role in not only passenger service but cargo service in the state, and that's something that the Transportation Department's also involved with.
Does the department also have a role, or the state have a role too, in public transportation?
Well, as far as Amtrak and the Amtrak funding, yes, when you get into that, and then also with the, I'm not too familiar with the Kansas City side, but we got Metro and the St. Louis area proper, and yes, we do help fund their resources as well. So
there's older adults programs too, don't we have some
yes,
stake in some of that? So it's a multifaceted thing. With declining resources or limited resources, did we mortgage our future in getting to where we are?
Well, you know, a lot of people don't understand, and I didn't understand, to be honest with you, that the Amendment 3 that was passed in the fall of 2004 that directed sales tax and license fees without going through Department of Revenue but directly going to the transportation system, the state statute called for those monies to be put into a state road bond fund. So those monies had to flow into a specified account according to statute, the way that petition was written. And those bond funds were required to be spent within about a 4-year, it ended up being about a 5-year period thanks to some federal stimulus dollars. They were required to spend so that we could accelerate some projects and complete some corridors. As you heard Representative Meadows comment about 36 and 60, these are some corridors that the state has been working on forever, that those dollars allowed those projects to be completed. So we followed what the state statute said. We bonded the revenue stream, and we took on some huge projects and completed them a lot earlier. I'm from St. Louis as well, so Highway 40 I still call it, but I-64 up in St. Louis was one of those projects. The Paseo Bridge in Kansas City, the 802 bridge package that you saw completed across the state, a lot of those things were completed because of the ability to bond that money and accelerate those projects forward. You
being from the St. Louis area, kind of, that I-64 project tried something new in road construction, and that seems to have really paid off and been a great example. Am I right?
Yes, it is. It has, and we're trying to get, it helps streamline projects and to move them through quicker. And the job that they did there, they came in on time, under budget, and ahead of schedule. And it was a work in progress. Now, will we see more future in that sort of building? We would love to see that, but I'll be quite honest with you again, it goes back to the funding sources, which I know we'll get into probably later on. But you know, one of the things that we have to, the harsh reality is what we're going to have to look at, and we're going to be talking about toll roads, I'm sure, but tolling of I-70, which is something that I'm not too much in favor of, but one of the things that we're going to have to realize, we have one of the lowest gas taxes in the nation. And we had a representative last week file a bill, and he brought it before our transportation committee, and he's a young man, he's a Republican, and he said, but we have to start the discussion, and it has to be. We're going to have to look at it, whether tolling is going to come. People will have an opportunity to share in that, I'm sure, but it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds in the years ahead.
We have only about a minute before our first break, Senator, but is there any way that we can avoid discussing some kind of a tax increase to keep our transportation program going?
I think we're going to have to talk about some investment in transportation. You know, currently, right now, we have the vehicle sales tax. We have the gas tax, both federal and state. Those both have its problems. 35 other states use tolling as a revenue stream. I'm not excited, as most Missourians are, about any of those things, but it's one of those conversations, as Representative Meadows said, we have to have. It's an investment in our future. It's investment in the safety of Missourians. And I think it's one of the three core fundamental pieces of government that taxpayers expect. It's something they can't do for themselves. So it's one of those things that we've got to get right, and we need to deliver to our citizens.
Well, we're going to have that conversation when we come back.
I don't miss my car, and I feel safe when I ride this bus. A little over a year ago, I got my car demolished. So I gave up on driving, and I'm their best customer. I go everywhere on that bus 5 days a week. That's just part of my life now. I enjoy the camaraderie. The drivers are really good drivers, and they look after us. I just feel safe when I ride this bus.
To find out how rural public transportation can put more life in your day, just give us a call.
Mayday, I need help.
Vessel in distress, this is the United States Coast Guard.
There are many thankless jobs out there. This isn't one of them.
It takes money to run a transportation system, for a system as large as the state of Missouri has, not just in roads and bridges, but so many other kinds of transportation. So we're going to continue our discussion with two members of the General Assembly about this issue. Senator Mike Kehoe on my left, and Representative Tim Meadows on my right. Toll roads. Interstate 70 is the main focus of toll road discussions, although some other people wonder why not make some other roads toll roads. 70 is where the conversation starts, right, Senator?
Right, and it was, we brought up the bill this year along with a couple other senators really to get a conversation going. As I mentioned before, I'm not sure that most Missourians are in love with any one method or another. Certainly, tolling has a lot of controversial comments that come out, but one thing the tolling conversation has accomplished is that awareness amongst Missourians about the need to fund transportation probably got a little bit of a bump from having that, and certainly that was one of the intended consequences. Whether it ended up being the right method or not, what we wanted to do is to get people aware that there's an issue facing us with transportation needs and resources, and we would really like Missourians to understand what it is and try to move some of those conversations forward.
Representative Meadows, is there any way to talk about funding transportation without toll roads entering the discussion?
What folks need to understand, tolling is an option, but what people need to understand is quite seriously the gas tax, and I call it the perfect storm. Granted, we're seeing $4 prices at the pump, but if we don't go to some type of tolling system, we're going to have to raise taxes, the fuel tax. There's no other options out in front of us that I can actually see. We have to be realistic about what we do. And I think people every day in their everyday lives, we take a lot of things for granted. We take for granted that, okay, we can get up in the morning and I can drive 35 miles to work and I don't have to pay for that, but I'm paying for taxes, for road use taxes through my fuel. But unfortunately, at times, there's just not enough to go around, and we're looking at a major, it's the perfect storm. We're going to have to make these tough decisions, but the general public needs to understand that they're going to have to, we all are in this together. And I know that the trucking industry has, they're opposed to this too, but they understand, I think for overall, they understand that there's going to have to be some options, and we're going to have to move forward with some pretty important decisions down the road. And I commend Senator Kehoe for helping bring that discussion forward this year, because even though I oppose toll roads, I realize that we're going to have to get something done.
Well, let me ask you, you mentioned something that just kind of triggered a thought in my mind, so let me ask you about this. How much was the gas tax when gasoline was $2 a gallon?
You know what, I can't really actually say that. The senator might probably.
It's 17 cents no matter what the gas price is.
And I was going to ask then, how much is it when it's $4 a gallon?
It's still 17 cents.
So
our gas tax, if it was indexed to the price per gallon, it would cure a lot of the problems that we're having with transportation funding, but it isn't. It's a flat cents per gallon.
Tax.
Is there any thought of a sales tax on gasoline and replacing the gas tax? Would that do any good?
Some of those options were talked about when Pete Ron was around, when he was our commissioner, and when we were, and he actually gave us a report several years running about this perfect storm that was coming, and those were one of the options that was on the table that was discussed. And at the time, Senator Kehoe was on the Transportation Commission, so was very aware of that.
I think the phrase Pete Ron used was falling off the cliff, or
falling off the cliff.
We have, haven't we?
We are there. And as Representative Meadows said, one of the conversations was to maybe eliminate the gas tax and put some type of sales tax, broad-based sales tax on it, giving people maybe relief at the pump. That's when gas was $2 a gallon, to your point, not at $4, and then replacing it with some sort of sales tax to try to advance it. The concern with gas tax is that vehicles are getting better miles per gallon. And, you know, if we're talking about a 10, 15, 20-year plan, you're going to have to look at where are we going to be as far as gas use 15 and 20 years from now. We've got cars that plug into the wall. We've got hydrogen technology making a little bit of run. And I'm not sure which one of those things ends up sticking and working. But if we're going to have the gas tax conversation, we just have to keep in mind that fuel efficiencies are going to make that a little bit tougher. It still may be the way to go, but it's going to make it a little bit tougher to, you know, make sure we see as far as a constant, you know, revenue source.
I sat in on some of the hearings on the toll road proposals, which I thought were very enlightening. One of the things that some of the truckers said was that if you toll Interstate 70 We're just going to move to some of the other highways, move up to 36 or move down to 44 or something like that, or 60. Would that be a significant problem for those other roads?
Well, some of those roads are recently have been rebuilt. 36 and 60, I think, would be good. 44 is not far behind 70 as far as the condition it's in. It's about 10 years behind.
That's correct.
And one of the other highways that people would think about is Highway 50, and it's has some stretches that are very good and some that are still, two-lane and dangerous. So those would all have to be things that taken into account, because no matter how you rebuild 70 and pay for it, whether it's a toll, whether it's a gas tax, whether it's a sales tax, or whatever ends up happening during that construction, which will be lengthy, you are going to have traffic diversion as well. So you're going to have to make sure that we kind of take the global picture in perspective as we move towards rebuilding some of these major interstates. And we're blessed to be the state that started the interstate system in St. Charles County, but we're also means that we have the oldest stretch in the 50 states. So we need to replace it.
Yeah, let me go to you with experience as a trucker.
Yes, sir.
How would a toll road on Interstate 70 affect you, or how would it have affected you in the days that you were driving a truck? Would you go find a place that wasn't tolled?
Well, again, I was in the organized sector, in the union sector. I'll just say this, that 5 years ago when I was at the National Conference of State Legislators, just as we were starting to see the rise in these problems, I had a gentleman come from one of the large trucking concerns in the nation come to me, and he said, "Well, Representative Meadows, if you go to a toll system in Missouri, we want the third trailer." Well, that means we're going to be pulling triples across Missouri. St. Louis is a large hub on the east side of the state, and as is Kansas City. What a lot of the trucking firms do, they'll truck their freight across to Kansas City and they'll put it on the rail at Kansas City, or if it's going on to Denver, they can, and down to Wichita, they can pull triples in Kansas on their turnpikes. The problem that we have, that I see as the organized sector right now, it takes one driver to pull a set of pups. If you now have two drivers pulling triples, that eliminates one job. So do I oppose it to the organized part of the trucking industry? Yes. Triples, I've pulled triples before. I know Senator's pulled doubles before. He's got a little experience in driving as well. Are they safe? Well, the records, the Highway Administration records say that they're safe, but it is a different world being on Interstate 70 in Missouri versus being on Interstate 70 in Kansas, which is flat and laid out. So we have a much more hilly terrain and much more curves, and so yes, we're going to have to really overhaul the system, but that's one of the reasons why I oppose it, is because I see it as a job loser for organized trucking.
Well, you see, it's more than just a stretch of road that's involved here. We're going to talk about more transportation when we come back.
Has anyone ever said, "You are the picture of health"? You look healthy and you feel fine. But that may not be the full picture. Colorectal cancer is the #2 cancer killer. It doesn't always cause symptoms, but it can be prevented. Get screened. Make sure you are the picture of health.
To learn about screening in St. Louis, call 314-879-6392. That's 314-879-6392.
All across Missouri, people are making a difference. AmeriCorps, providing resources to meet human needs. Vista, building better communities. Learn and Serve, promoting the service of youth. Senior Corps, sharing wisdom and experience. Make a difference, be a volunteer. This message brought to you by the Missouri Community Service Commission. For more information, visit movolunteers.org or call 877-210-7611.
Pretty clearly, transportation is a multifaceted issue, and we've just scratched the surface with the things we've been talking about so far today when we talk about roads, bridges, toll roads, and the like. Let's move on to talk about something else, and that's Amtrak, which has pretty good service from St. Louis to Kansas City, or Kansas City to St. Louis, depending on which side of the state you live on. And it's getting better with the installation of that bridge that we mentioned earlier in the program. From time to time, people start talking about extending Amtrak service, like from St. Louis down to Springfield.
Sure.
Is that practical in today's climate?
I would love to see it personally, but again, we're looking at a lot of the railroads, that corridor. Again, we're looking at a very old, antiquated type rail system that runs between St. Louis and Kansas City, or St. Louis and Springfield now. So the work that would have to be done along those tracks would have to be, again, we're looking at a lot of money. So practical, even though a lot of folks want it, and it would be great to have, but again, you're looking at a lot of money.
I seem to remember in a hearing that I was in, somebody from Amtrak was talking about a St. Louis to Springfield run that probably wouldn't be any faster than driving.
Right. At a real high level, there was some discussions about this about 3 years ago. Brian Weiler, who was the multimodal director at MoDOT at the time, got together with some of the rail providers and certainly some of the cities throughout the route between St. Louis and Springfield. And as the representative said, there seemed to be some desire to see it get done, but the roadbed, the track structure, if you will, is old. The bridges along that route are old, and you don't have parallel tracks in about 80% of the run. So you're going to look at some time performance when it comes to moving freight or passenger service through some of those corridors. It's something to keep on the radar screen, but right now, on a priority basis, there's probably some other projects, transportation-wise, that Missourians would like to see get done or completed first.
Another issue that comes up when we talk about Amtrak is people want to talk about high-speed rail. Do you see high-speed rail coming to Missouri anytime in the future?
I would love to see that. I think it's something that we definitely need to keep our eyesight on. One of the things that was also talked about, and I had heard this in my time here, my 9 years here, was the fact that they were going to actually build bring a car manufacturer here, a high-speed rail car manufacturer. And boy, what a great thing that would have been. But do I see it coming? Yes. But again, it has to be rolled out. Folks have to realize that this is all a part of that perfect storm. The funding sources for this is what's got us bogged down, and I know that the Senator would agree with us.
Yeah, standard rail is expensive enough. High-speed rail is really expensive.
It gets it's another leap into funding to bring high-speed rail, and I think right now Amtrak would like to show people that with the proper rail alignment, they can improve their on-time performance. The gentleman from Amtrak was at the Osage River Bridge ribbon cutting the other day, and he quoted some statistics about not only their on-time performance, but their ridership and how much it's increased. It's increasing for two reasons. One, they're able to get people where they need to be on time, and $3.89 gasoline will get people to Amtrak in a hurry.
Airports come under transportation in the state of Missouri. Do we still have an airport aid program?
Yes, there is programs available not only through the state but also federal matching funds that we take advantage of. And communities all over the state, some of their airports are a vital link for them to access the balance of the state and trade. So whether it's a small airport that just has private aircraft in and out of it, or an airport that we have several airports that have commercial aircraft in and out of it, those are vital, essential tools for people to stay connected and to let travelers and cargo be provided for citizens.
Are airports as important to smaller communities for economic development as we think they are, for example, for St. Louis, Kansas City? Do they play a role in that?
Absolutely, they do. I've been blessed to be able to have traveled this state all over the place, and I would say that absolutely yes. I think that we just actually, like the town of Washington, Missouri, for example, a huge growing. They have their own airport. A lot of the large businesses, their business executives come and go through that airport. I actually was there one time years ago as I was a truck driver and got caught in a rainstorm with U.S. Senator Kit Bond. We took shelter in a hangar there when a tornado was actually in the area. So, but yes, that is a very important airport. So yes, the smaller airports are a huge shot in the arm for the rural communities of our state.
Now, some of our community airports are in danger of losing their passenger traffic because of changes at the federal level. Mm-hmm. Is the state involved at all in passenger traffic with these airports?
Well, I mean, it's part of the overall conversation when it comes to the funding formula and what parts can play a role in that. But as Representative Meadows had said several times, all of these transportation projects require resources, and prioritizing those resources and trying to find the funding to provide for those resources is the challenge that that helps a lot of these conversations either advance or stop.
How about river traffic? We haven't talked about river ports. How do they play into all of this mixture?
Yep, port development over the last several years on the Highway Commission with me for, actually he was one of the longest serving highway commissioners from Caruthersville, Missouri, is Dwayne Mickey. He's right on the Missouri River. He is the champion of port conversations. He, on his own dime, went all over the world, literally, looking at how Europe and Asia deals with shipment of goods in river situations. In the Missouri River, the problem is the draft level and being able to keep the channel clear for constant travel. So port development has taken on a new role in the last several years. I'd like to think Mr. Mickey had a big part in that, but now there's other highway commissioners and other people up and down the Missouri and Mississippi River making sure that port development continues to progress and use what a great resource we have for reliable transportation. And you know, every time we ship something by a barge or down the river, it's X amount of weight that we take off of the highways. Now, I'm not trying to do anything to the trucking industry because that's commerce, and we want them. But there's room for both, is what I'm saying, and it does help alleviate some of that tonnage that's going up and down our interstates right now.
Over in eastern Missouri, your general area, there are some ports.
We do have them on the east side. Yes, sir, we do.
And how important are they to the communities in terms of the economy of the communities, the business, the communities, the development of them?
They are outstanding. Several years ago, we passed legislation in the Missouri House that I remember working on to allow a port at Caruthersville, Missouri. We in Jefferson County, my home county, we are trying to get a port at this present time. We would love to have that economic engine to help Jefferson County and to help alleviate, just like he said, commerce has got to move, and it's not all about moving it on the trucks and putting it on the wheel, on the rubber. But to have that, we would love it.
Well, there's a lot of facets to go with transportation, and it's all going to cost money sooner or later. Somebody's going to have to address it, and people like this are the ones who are going to do it in the General Assembly. We'll be back to talk about transportation more in future programs. Thanks for being with us on this edition of Capitol Dialogue.